the Chicago Bulls pick Michael Jordan of the University of North Carolina.
With the first pick in the 2003 NBA draft, the Cleveland Cavaliers select LeBron James.
Michael Jordan, LeBron James, players who have defined generations. But with LeBron's fourth championship this season, as he passed MJ as the GOAT, Jordan, he relied on a sublime scoring ability coupled with cutthroat, knock you on your back competitiveness.
Michael Jordan was the alpha. Period.
He was pushing us all to be better because he wanted to win. And guess what? It worked.
He was dominating the league when they had a Celtics dynasty, when they had a Lakers dynasty, when the bad boy Pistons were there.
But when it's time to get a bucket, I mean, MJ was that dude to take over a game, averaging 40 in the finals one year, winning that championship.
You know, it's two different animals. Michael was a killer. He's an assassin.
He has an energy level that's unmatched by any other player or any other athlete.
But LeBron is a different beast. More than just a scorer, he makes all of his teammates better.
Between the defender's legs. In the finish. Allow me to introduce myself. My name is Brown. Throws it back at Splitter, who is ready to dunk. Another iconic moment.
Each have unbelievable plays and amazing playoff moments. But only one can be tabbed the greatest of all time. This is Settling the Score, MJ vs. LeBron, only on Sportsnet.
Good evening, basketball fans, and welcome to a special edition of Settling the Score. I'm Keegan Levine.
And I'm Yuri Kogi. Today we got a good one, as we once again try and tackle the never-ending basketball debate: who is the GOAT, Michael Jordan or LeBron James?
With LeBron picking up his fourth chip last month, some are suggesting LBJ's updated resume leaves him as the best to ever do it, surpassing Michael Jordan. Are you buying that, Yuri?
Well, LeBron's legacy is certainly enhanced thanks to what the Los Angeles Lakers were able to accomplish in the bubble down in Orlando. At 35 years old, he nearly averaged a triple-double during the playoff run, despite playing the least number of minutes per game in his postseason career. With all that said, it's hard to recognize the accomplishments of this Lakers team without giving major praise to Anthony Davis.
I agree. AD was a monster down the stretch for LA, and on many occasions was their best performer on the night in several playoff games. And quite honestly, this isn't the first such occasion of this in King James's career. Be it Kyrie Irving, Dwayne Wade, LBJ has almost always had another big game player to lean on to get the job done when things weren't going his way.
Absolutely, and when it comes to MJ, obviously Scottie Pippen is the first name that comes to mind when you think of the supporting cast for those Bulls teams that won 6 titles in the 90s. And Pippen certainly was a great player in his own right, but when you look at the firepower of LeBron's teammates compared to the help MJ was getting, it definitely appears as though James has gotten more support along the way.
Without question, in the span of Jordan's 15-year NBA career, his teammates accumulated just 28 All-Star appearances compared to a staggering 100-plus and counting for James. With regards to guys who they played with to get into the All-Star game 10 or more times, it's 5 for LBJ and 0 for Mike. Although the amount of time LeBron actually spent with these guys during their prime is debatable, the contrast between the two totals is certainly eye-opening.
Eye-opening indeed, and you mentioned LeBron getting cameos from 7 different stars over the years, and a big part of that is the different teams he had played for. One of the key differences between him and Jordan is MJ played virtually his entire career and won all 6 of his championships with the Bulls, while LBJ is on team number 3 and now a 3rd different franchise he's helped capture a Larry O'Brien trophy. James fans will argue LeBron faced a unique issue with the era of the super team, and as such his 4 titles are of more value than Jordan's 6. Keegan, Are you buying the concept that a super team is new to the NBA?
Absolutely not. If you look at some of the teams in the Eastern Conference that kept Jordan from winning in the early parts of his career, you'll see just how dominant they were at the time. The Boston Celtics, featuring Larry Bird and Kevin McHale, to name a couple, were East champs 5 out of 7 years in the early 80s. And then the bad boy Pistons team, led by Isaiah Thomas, took the torch and went to 3 straight finals from 88 to 1990. That Detroit team is still widely regarded as one of the toughest defensive teams in league history. And so the level of competition for Chicago and MJ faced back then often gets downplayed.
And of course, rather than leave the Bulls and try and come back the Celtics and Pistons dominance, Michael stuck it out in Chicago, and once they were able to find their stride, they never looked back, winning all 6 finals they got into between 91 and 98, which is another department where MJ trumps LeBron, and that's the efficiency. A perfect 6 for 6 in finals appearances, MJ always brought his best when the lights were brightest, averaging 33.3 points per game in his postseason career, nearly 5 points higher than James. It's crazy to think a guy who's played in 10 NBA Finals and 8 in a row might not be the best to ever do it, but it truly puts into perspective how good Jordan was in the postseason.
Certainly an impressive pair of resumes on display there, and the conversation could really go on all night, but that's enough from us. Let's throw it to Lucas Weiss, who's joined by Sekou Smith of NBA TV to get his opinion on the MJ-LBJ debate.
Do you have a story or a moment of him that reminds you of just how big of a superstar and a bona fide competitor that he was?
Yeah, I have one that sticks out in particular. And it was his last All-Star game, 2003 or 4, in Atlanta, when Isaiah Thomas, the coach of the Pacers at the time, I was covering that team, was the coach of the Eastern Conference All-Star team. And to see even Isaiah, who had his famous battles with Michael Jordan and the simmering feud and bad blood between the two of them, depending on who you talk to, remains today. But even Isaiah knew at the end of Jordan's second stint in the league, when he was still averaging 20 a game, and people feared him when he showed up to arenas. You were wondering, were you going to see a vintage MJ scoring performance? Would he do something that left everybody's jaw on the ground? The reverence that everybody had for him at his last All-Star weekend as a player. And Vince Carter gave up his starting spot on the Eastern Conference team so Michael Jordan could start in his last All-Star game. And it wasn't at the behest of Michael Jordan or anything like that. It was at the behest of Isaiah Thomas, one of his most ruthless and cutthroat competitors during his Bulls years, recognizing the need to acknowledge Michael Jordan and all he'd done at that moment. That, when you talk about the respect that people have for a guy they consider to be the best of the best, when the people who stood in your path and did everything they could within their power to keep you from ascending, show you that kind of deference and respect, it tells you something about not only what kind of competitor he was, but what kind of lasting effect he's had on the game and the people who have played it.
Do you still think that even though LeBron is chasing that ghost that is Michael Jordan, that even after LeBron's career, that Michael will still be the greatest because of how he changed basketball and because of those accomplishments like 6 for 6 NBA championships and NBA Finals MVPs?
I do. I just think it's really difficult to separate the concentrated brilliance of Michael Jordan's career. The fact that he did it in the compressed amount of time that he did. And as you mentioned, 6 finals appearances, 6 finals MVPs, never a game 7, never a question in any of the finals he appeared in, not in one single game, that he wasn't the most dominant and influential figure in the building each and every time. Makes it hard to separate him from the accomplishment and put anybody else on that level. Even greats like Kareem Abdul-Jabbar and Bill Russell, guys who were champions however many times over. There were times when late in his career when Kareem wasn't the greatest player on that court in the finals. Michael Jordan never took the floor in the finals when he wasn't the greatest player, and then executed as much and made it very clear by the end of that game, that series, that he was the greatest player on the floor. And his will wouldn't be denied. I mean, I think as much as we want to weigh different parts of their careers against each other's, if you just look at their finals histories, Michael never had a finals where somebody else outshined him or outplayed him. And as great as LeBron has been, for as long as he's been that great, he's had finals appearances where he didn't measure up to his own standard. And therefore, a Dirk Nowitzki outplayed him. Kevin Durant twice, clear as day, was the best and most dominant player on the court in a final series when LeBron James was involved. You just don't have those instances when Michael Jordan is concerned. And it'll always come back to the fact that when Michael Jordan was in those positions to finish what he started, he was 6 for 6 finals MVPs.
Sekou Smith of NBA TV, thank you so much for stopping by.
Thanks, Lucas. Now for the grand finale, we are headed for the verdict on who's the greatest of all time, Michael Jordan or LeBron James. Thank you for joining us tonight. I'm Yuri Kogi.
And I'm Keegan Levine. Have a great night.
In the bowels of a basketball arena, permeated across the 94 feet of court, a spirit lives on. Even in the modern NBA, players feel it, embrace it, chase it. The ghost of a legend. Michael Jordan hasn't played professional basketball since April 16th of 2003. He was a shell of his dominant self, the conclusion of an era that saw basketball soar in the consciousness of sport and society. But even as he hung up the sneakers, very few people knew who the real MJ was. What motivated him to his greatness? This past April, sports fans watched and reveled in Jordan's dynastic career with the Chicago Bulls in The Last Dance. For a younger generation who never witnessed MJ live, it offered a glimpse into the ascension of a superstar in the sport. Say the name Michael, and immediately you know the reference. The buzzer beater against Georgetown as a member of the UNC Tar Heels? Only the beginning. Jordan entered the NBA with pedigree and somehow surpassed it. Even though he didn't win an NBA championship until 1991, Jordan was must-watch entertainment. From the ton out to his moves at the rim and buzzer beater shots galore, MJ was a bona fide competitor. He hated losing as much as he loved winning, and that fire burned as he manufactured rivalries with teammates, fueling the production on the court. The playoffs, the biggest and brightest stage in basketball, was an amphitheater primed for Jordan to succeed. No player has a higher playoff scoring average, and his NBA Finals record is a perfect 6 for 6 with 6 Finals MVPs. From the flu game to the shrug, culminating with the shot, Jordan's list of iconic moments is endless. But it's his impact off the court that's even more magnetic. He developed the Air Jordan shoe, starred in the cult classic Space Jam, even soared on international ground as a member of the Dream Team, all the while laying the groundwork for the future generation to try and reach his level. In every sport, there are athletes that transcend what it means to be the best. Jordan is right there with them. In a sport like basketball, where one singular force can shake the foundation of dominance, Jordan became that transient figure. While he still remains an enigma to many, there's no denying that we've never seen a superstar dominate basketball like Michael Jordan, and probably never will again.